All right, everyone. We are in Manhattan on West 57th Street, heading westbound. We're going into Pennsylvania in Harrisburg today. Oh, and it's heavy rain right now. So first, let's go to the Holland Tunnel. Past 6th Avenue. 57th Street is known as Billionaire's Row with a lot of high-rise buildings. See a lot of attractions here.
Billionaire's Row is a group of ultra-luxury residential skyscrapers and the neighborhoods surrounding them near the southern end of Central Park in the Midtown section of Manhattan. Several of these buildings are in the super tall category, taller than 1,000 feet.
The first attraction we see on our left is the Carnegie Hall, where they have a lot of musical performances. Here's 7th Avenue. Let's make a left turn. And already we can see Times Square up in the distance.
Once we cross into 57th Street to the south, we enter Midtown Manhattan's Theater District. This is where most Broadway theaters are located, in addition to other theaters, movie theaters, restaurants, hotels, and other places of entertainment.
Manhattan's avenues are a lot of one-way streets, so the green lights are synchronized, so we can go in a platoon of cars, just going straight without needing to stop. This is called the Green Wave.
This is definitely one of the most iconic New York City locations. It's great for taking pictures, and also there's no traffic here at this time, which makes it an easy and pleasant drive, especially when it's dark outside and the billboards light up the street.
It's 5 o'clock right now and it's pretty bright here. The city's pretty empty. Oh wow, it's very clear here. A lot of white LED lights. Oh, and we can see the 2026 display from the ball drop up above. Here we go. It's Times Square. I don't think anyone wants to be outside in this heavy rain.
The diagonal street we just passed to our left is Broadway. It is the oldest north-south main thoroughfare in New York City, with much of the current street said to have begun as the Wikipedia Trail before the arrival of the Europeans.
We can see the subway over there on the 42nd Street. 7th Avenue has the IRT Broadway 7th Avenue line, which is the 1, 2, and 3 trains. Travels on 7th Avenue south of 45th Street.
The subway line underneath Broadway south of 45th Street is the BMT Broadway line, or the Yellow Line, which carries the N, Q, R, and W trains. It is also the longest street in the world, spanning a distance of 150 miles from the financial district to Albany, the state's capital. Under 41st Street is the IRT Flushing subway line, or the Purple Line carrying the number 7 train, my home subway line.
Once we cross 42nd Street, we get into the Garment District. 7th Avenue is also known as Fashion Avenue, which is co-signed in the names. This name has been on signs since 1972. And a major history with its textile industry. And I think it still does today. The city narrowed the streets, and now we only have 3 lanes for cars. I can imagine this area could be having a lot of traffic, but there's a lot of pedestrian traffic here as well.
You can take the 7 train east to Flushing, Queens, New York City's biggest and best Chinatown, Citi Field, where the New York Mets baseball team plays, or Arthur Ashe Stadium, the largest tennis stadium in the world, which hosts the U.S. Tennis Open annually in the late summer.
Macy's is on 34th Street on the left. That's where they have the big original store, the Thanksgiving Day Parade as well. Penn Station is also here, as well as Madison Square Garden. That's where all the taxis are. Two major sports teams that play in Madison Square Garden is the New York Knicks for basketball and the New York Rangers for ice hockey, as well as a bunch of other performances they have over there. A lot of steam from the smokestacks here as part of the city's heating system. On our right, we see FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology.
South of 34th Street is the neighborhood of Chelsea. This neighborhood is primarily residential, with a mix of tenements, apartment blocks, 2 city housing projects, townhouses, and renovated row houses. But its many retail businesses reflect the ethnic and social diversity of the population. Chelsea is also known as one of the center of the city's art world, with over 200 galleries in the neighborhood. Chelsea takes its name from the estate and Gregorian-style house of retired British Major Thomas Clark, who obtained the property when he bought the farm of Jacob Summeryn Dyke on August 16, 1750. The land was bounded by what would become 21st and 24th Streets from the Hudson River to 8th Avenue.
Not that many businesses open around here. It's pretty dark.
Clark chose the name Chelsea after the Royal Hospital Chelsea in London.
Here's 14th Street. This is basically the end of the Manhattan grid throughout the whole span of the island. As we cross into 11th Street, that used to be the former terminus of 7th Avenue, but it got extended in 1914 to make it wider and extended to connect with Varick Street, as well as the extension of the subway lines, the 1, 2, and 3 trains. So we are in Greenwich Village,
or more specifically, the West Village.
So this avenue just cuts down through the whole grid.
The neighborhood is distinguished by streets that are off the grid, being set at an angle to other streets in Manhattan.
There's Christopher Street. That's where they have the Stonewall Inn. Oh, we can see a good view of the World Trade Center from here. So this is 7th Avenue South.
These roads were laid out in an 18th century grid plan, approximately parallel or perpendicular to the Hudson long before the Commissioner's Plan of 1811, which created the Main Street grid plan for later parts of the city.
Alright, after this turn we go into Varick Street, and we'll be approaching the Holland Tunnel very shortly.
Varick Street is named after Richard Varick, an early New York lawmaker and mayor of New York City from 1789 to 1801, who owned property in the area. Varick Street was widened during the southward extension of 7th Avenue in 1917. A number of old buildings were torn down during the widening project, including St. John's Chapel, which facilitated construction of New York City Subway's IRT Broadway 7th Avenue line and opened a new vehicular route between Midtown and Lower Manhattan.
Holland Tunnel, Interstate 78, that's the terminus in the New York side. We're going to enter into New Jersey.
The Holland Tunnel is free when crossing into New Jersey. This is true for all Hudson River crossings since 1971. However, the toll when coming to New York is very expensive.
Alright, the entrance is right here. There's also another entrance at Watt Street, just one block ahead, as well as Canal Street. Alright, let's get in the Holland Tunnel. This is actually the first crossing for roadway crossing between Manhattan and New Jersey.
As of 2026, the cheapest off-peak rate is $14.79, peak is $16.79, and the most expensive is tolls by mail at $23.30. Yikes.
I think it started construction in the early 1920s and was completed in 1927. Not named after the city in Holland in Europe, but it's named after the chief engineer who passed away before the tunnel's completion, Clifford Milburn Holland.
It was the world's first mechanically ventilated tunnel with a ventilation system designed by Old Singh's dad, who oversaw the tunnel's completion. The tubes are made of cast iron rings covered by concrete and measuring 29.5 feet in diameter, running parallel under the river. Each tube fits 2 lanes and has 12.5 feet of vertical clearance. It contains a system of vents that run transverse or perpendicular to the tubes. Each side of the Hudson River has 2 ventilation shaft buildings, one on land and one in the river, approximately 1,000 feet from the respective shoreline. The 4 ventilation towers contain a combined 84 fans. Of these, 42 are intake fans with varying capacities from 84,000 to 218,000 cubic feet per minute. The other 42 are exhaust fans, which can blow between 87,500 and 227,000 cubic feet per minute. At the time of the tunnel's construction, 2/3 of the 84 fans were being used regularly, while the other fans were reserved for emergency use. The fans blow fresh air into ducts, which provide intake to the tunnel via openings in the tube's curved side. The ceiling contains slits, which are used to exhaust air. The fans can replace all of the air inside the tunnel every 90 seconds. A forced ventilation system is essential because of the poisonous carbon monoxide component of automobile exhaust, which constituted a far greater percentage of exhaust gases before catalytic converters became prevalent.
Entering into Jersey City, New Jersey. There's a lot of gas stations here, and it's usually a good spot to refuel. It's pretty expensive outside of here, and that's what we're going to be doing here. We got to refuel in our tank.
This is 14th Street.
Weird part of the interstate system where it is actually more of a strode.